December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
America has had several days of infamy since the original one over 70 years ago now. I believe November 3rd, 2020 might be one of those. We weren't attacked. Thousands of people didn't die, and thankfully the expected violence on that day was minimal. But infamy, something dark, vile, and wicked, did occur. Half our country turned toward the evil
don't you dare
policies of socialism and Marxism, and the America we all love fell a little bit further down the rabbit hole of control and oppression. I wonder if those from America's greatest generation, the men and women who endured the horrors that we'll never understand, were terrified from above, watching us use our sacred vote that they died to protect, only to further erode Lady Liberty. But they, that great generation, became great through the dark challenges with which they were faced. I believe us, this generation, could be the next greatest. Because now we also have a challenge, a war, if you will, on our hands. It's a war of ideas and dangerous ideology that could destroy our children's free futures. Now is our time. It is our time to choose. And not choose between two men, Trump or Biden, but choose freedom over oppression. Now is the time to win back our nation and the principles for which it stands. And our fight begins now. Tonight, a Biden victory? How conservatives win in the end. Hello, America. For the last few days, I have, and I think you feel the same, had a gut punch. And I've been trying to put my finger on it, and I've been trying to figure out what to say to you and how to say it. And I think I just have to say it like this. I don't know about you, but I'm tired. I am worn out. I am fed up. I've had enough. I am tired of exposing corruption, doing our homework, going overseas and having documents translated to make sure they're exactly right, presenting the evidence. We know what's happening, except then once we expose it, nothing happens. Nobody goes to jail. Nobody pays for a damn thing anymore. Nothing. If you and I did half the things that people in Washington do every day, you and I would go to prison. Clinton got away with it. Even the left knew that the Clinton Foundation was dirty. They sold uranium to our biggest enemy, Russia. Nothing. No. She can take confidential, top secret emails and put them on her server at her home. Something you and I would go to prison for. We would be in prison for the rest of our lives. Not a big deal. Benghazi? No. Not only did we show you that we were gun running to a group in Syria that became ISIS, that's what we were doing in Benghazi. Not only that, but just the killing of a U.S. ambassador, and, might I point out, on Veterans Day, we abandon our troops. Did anything happen? Nope. Nope. Nothing. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of actually being open and saying, okay, well, let's look into the spying on this presidential candidate. That's a pretty hefty charge. Were they doing it? And then finding out, yes, they were, and nothing happens. He was colluding with Russia. My gosh, that should be the biggest scandal of all time if that were true. If it wasn't true and it was started and evidence paperwork even showed that they knew, all the way to the White House. You'd think that would be even a bigger story. Lying to the FISA courts, nothing. Creating an enemies list, nothing. Using our own intelligence agencies to assist in this operation. Spending millions of dollars on a claim they knew that wasn't true. The collusion on Russia, they knew it before the president was ever elected. The scandal, the loss of billions of tax dollars in Ukraine, no big deal. The lies and the collusion with the Obama administration in Ukraine, no big deal. Hunter Biden, forget about Burisma. What was that, $7 billion? Who cares? Look at Hunter Biden and his father in China. Oh, but we don't have any proof of that. Yes, we do. We have all the proof anyone who cares to be honest needs. We have all the documents on his own frickin' laptop, which have been verified for people that were working with him, who were Democrats that had those same emails on their computer. Nothing. The scandal of our Justice Department, the deep state, which I didn't believe in 4 years ago. My gosh, you've got to be dead and probably voting in the last election if you don't see the deep state. The corruption of our media telling us to deny our own eyes. There's a car on fire, and they're like, oh, nothing's happening here. It's totally peaceful. There's a car on fire behind you, but we're not supposed to notice that. Good has been made evil, and evil is made good. They ask you now to don't believe your own eyes, believe us. Our country is being torn apart on the streets by radicals who are marching with no Trump, no Biden, no America signs. But don't worry about that. This is just a peaceful group. Really? Our children are being indoctrinated with all kinds of crap, telling them that they're racist because of the color they were born with. The teachers' unions completely out of control. The lies of Black Lives Matter, Inc., and no one seems to care. No one seems to care that Black Lives Matter is actually a corporation. That Black Lives Matter, on their own manifesto, said they wanted to destroy the nuclear family. But that's all fine. Antifa? No, they're not wild in the streets. That's only an idea. Yeah, kind of like Nazism was an idea. But yet, if you support the Constitution, if you just say, I want a fair and legal count, you're a radical. You're an anti-government zealot. I've had it. I've had enough. I almost didn't make the show last week because this is what I wanted to say to you. Except it would have been followed with, so see you later. Do you know how hard this is? I know you do because you're doing it in your own life. Do you know how hard it is to know this stuff, to be able to prove this stuff, and yet nobody seems to care? You're the bad guy. Yep. And then to tell yourself, remain peaceful with love in your heart. Let me get this out of the way. Nothing is over. CNN and Fox News, surprisingly enough, don't have the power to declare victory for anyone. The hypocrisy from the mainstream media and the left calling for Trump to concede and just roll over and accept the results is staggering. When you have Democrats, just so happy to accept their defeat. Really? When? When have they done that? When have they, in the last 20 years, accepted defeat? Not since George H.W. Bush. Al Gore launched a 36-day legal battle in 2000. I was in Florida at the time. He didn't fully concede until December. And even to this day, they still say George Bush stole the election. They delegitimized him. The entire time. That was just a dry run for what they did to Donald Trump. To this day, Democrats claim Russia stole the 2016 election. To this day, they spent over $30 million to try to prove it. We spent, $100 and some phone time? And we showed you it wasn't true. And by the way, who's the governor of Georgia right now? Well, if you ask Stacey Abrams and many within the Democratic Party, it's Stacey Abrams. They didn't give up that. She still says that was an illegitimate election. She lost by 50,000 votes. It's illegitimate. I actually won. Democrats are the biggest sore losers of all time. But Trump, if he just doesn't roll over, you know what? Screw you. There is a process. And the Trump campaign has every right to see it through. It may or may not change the election, but the process matters. The law matters. Democrats and the media are doing everything in their power to convince you that what Trump is doing right now is not normal. It is. I told you before we went into this election how the left is organizing street protests to force Donald Trump into conceding. Well, did the right do that in 2000? Did we start burning things to the ground while the Russia investigation was going on? No. And you know what, Bill Barr? Where the hell are you? Where are you? I am sick and tired of everybody saying that you are so great. Oh my gosh, he's just the fairest guy ever. Where the hell are you? We don't trust our justice system. What are you doing? The left, organized to force Trump's hand, is now moving into phase 2. New protests began last Friday. If you scroll through their list, they plan even more action going all the way into January. But we're in the eye of the hurricane right now. Do you notice there were everybody was set to riot on the streets, and it's almost like they got a phone call. No, hold back. Looks like maybe we can pull this thing off without any riots. It's weird how peaceful it's been, but I guarantee you the minute it looks like they have any evidence on this stealing of the election, or maybe it was just an honest mistake, you have any evidence, I guarantee you they will be in the streets rioting. I showed you earlier the linchpin for these protests to really kick into high gear would be if Trump refused to concede. The longer this drags out, the calls from the left to hit the streets are going to grow louder. Forget the fact that this is quite literally how the process works, a process Democrats take advantage of every time they lose. Stop lecturing me about trying to delegitimize the next president. It's not official until December 9th. There is a process outlined in the Constitution, and it is Donald Trump's duty to investigate this election. Yes, there are anomalies. Yeah, believe it or not. It's very important that we learn to separate the crap from the real questions. And there's a lot. I mean, we are neck deep in bull crap if you go out online. I would bet you that there is Russian operatives right now playing both sides. You're going to find out the Trump campaign is now focusing on all the wrong things, or maybe all the right things. Let's look at what the lawyers are focusing on. A political process. Last Tuesday was a political process. Now it's constitutional. I have several questions that I think should be asked. Why were the poll watchers in Pennsylvania kept away from doing their jobs? One poll watcher said, and I quote, "We literally had no input and no ability to watch anything." Similar claims were made in Michigan. Although poll watchers were inside the rooms, they weren't allowed to be close enough to actually see anything. When word of this got out, take a look at what they did. Oh yeah, but that's easily explained away. I've never seen anything like this before. Why would you cover the windows? Well, the city of Detroit, which is squeaky clean, told Fox News, which is so on our side, that they did this to protect voter information and filming ballots. But look how far away the actual vote counters are from the windows. How are you going to see that? I said over a month ago that it would be the changes in the rules, and I guarantee you this is where you're going to get them if there's a way to change the outcome of this from Biden, which really looked on election night like it was for Donald Trump, and then all of a sudden it went to Joe Biden. Well, maybe that's all legitimate. But let me tell you something. It's going to be in the changing of the rules in the middle of the game, shifting to mass mail-in ballots. I told you it would cause an insane amount of chaos and open the door to either real fraud or at the very least, the appearance of fraud. Mail-in ballots are historically rejected. Tens of thousands are usually rejected. In Pennsylvania, the rate is always about 1%. If you're the first time filling out the ballot, that goes up to 3%. Usually in Pennsylvania, it's usually due to human error, not filling it out correctly. In 2016, 266,208 mail-in ballots were cast in Pennsylvania. 2,534 were rejected. That's just under 1%. So what was it this year when all these people did it for the very first time? Should be 3%. No, this year rejected the mail-in ballots was almost 30 times lower in Pennsylvania. Out of over 2.6 million ballots, they only found 951 that were bad. Yeah, that is really good. That's a rate of 0.03%. But don't worry, nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Meanwhile, up in Wisconsin, my gosh, they got all of these ballots. They only filled in the president. They all voted for Joe Biden, but they couldn't figure out how to use the post office. A stamp? What do I have, a stamp or something? So those were all brought in afterwards, you know, because those people up in Wisconsin, they're not smart like they are in Pennsylvania. They're just a big box of dummies up there. They don't even know how to use stamp. With the stamp, I put it on my forehead. How about this from a member of Trump's legal team, Sidney Powell? Watch.
We've identified at least 450,000 ballots in the key states that miraculously only have a mark for Joe Biden on them and no other candidate.
That's weird. 450,000 ballots across the swing states that they only voted for a ballot, no other down ballot. And that's weird. I mean, it could be done. 450,000? Really? Does it mean fraud occurred? I have no idea. Maybe just people were like, I'm going to go out there and vote for Joe Biden. I'm so passionate about him and nothing else. I don't care about the Senate or the House or anything else. I don't care about any of my local issues. Just Joe Biden because I'm passionate. Really? On Monday, we got a little more clarification on what Trump's lawyers are doing behind the scenes. Watch.
As of 4 p.m. this afternoon, 131 affidavits have been completed just in Michigan, with over 2,800 incident reports that have been submitted to us since Election Day. 2 new lawsuits were filed today by people who were working in Detroit, and a whistleblower who has gotten their information. We have gotten their information to the Eastern District Court of Michigan.
131 affidavits, 2,800 incident reports in Michigan. 2 lawsuits in Pennsylvania that include sworn statements from a whistleblower. This is the affidavit, the sworn whistleblower statement. Quote, I was instructed by my supervisor to adjust the mailing date of these absentee ballot packages to be dated earlier than when they were actually sent. The supervisor was making announcements for all workers to engage in this practice. Let me tell you something. If any of these affidavits are false and the Trump attorneys file them, they'll lose their license and could go to jail. It is a federal crime. Oh, yeah, but nobody really held it. Oh, I bet this guy would be. He'd be held responsible. You go to jail forever, dude. You were on the side of the bad side, Donald Trump. So the ballots were received after the polls had closed, which is against the rules, the election supervisor allegedly telling counters to physically alter the mailing dates. Remember the massive waves of ballots that were coming in for Biden and 0 for Trump. Does this sound like maybe we should have an actual court case on this? Does this look like something we should actually look into? Or are we just going to fight on Twitter? You know what? Let's settle it on Twitter. Hey, Iceland, they drew up their new constitution on Twitter. Twitter's great. All of this is being handled by Trump's legal team. So it is mostly out of our hands now. There is no reason to argue with one another. You hurt the cause, I believe, if you further things that you don't know if is true or not. I get so many people emailing or tweeting at me. Is this true? Don't resend it. Don't. There are things that we must do right now, and one of them is support the legal team. I don't know what they're going to come up with, but I know they are the ones that are the only ones that are going to be able to change this if indeed something was going on. I personally think something was going on, but I don't know what it was. We already showed you what Democrats had planned if they sweep the election. Remember this from Bernie Sanders?
And these folks, needless to say, people who represented the progressive movement had a different perspective on things than did Biden's people. But there was serious discussion and I think a real honest effort to come up with a compromise. And I think the compromise that they came up with, if implemented, will make Biden the most progressive president since FDR.
A compromise was made to give Joe Biden the nomination and then turn him into the second coming of FDR. The fundamental transformation of America. That's what they want. This is despite over 70 million people who voted against it. But you, shut up and sit down. You're dangerous. Your opinions don't matter. Your opinion matters just as much as the next guy. I cannot take the sanctimonious bullcrap from the media another second. Americans have proven they do not want socialism. Let's just take this whole thing at face value. Yeah, Donald Trump lost. Did you see how many House seats the Democrats lost? Did you see how much they thought they were going to get and they didn't do? They do not want a defund the police campaign. We came out in force to make that clear. Democrats said that as well. Democrats are said to be, quote, devastated over the results on Tuesday. Really? You want to talk about what's not united? It's not just the United States is not united. The Democrats aren't united. House Republicans knocked off at least 5 incumbent Democrats. Their majority is slipping away. Do you remember how Texas was supposed to be, it's going blue? Really? Well, in some places it did, but not like they said it would. Democrats targeted 10 seats that they thought they could flip. They lost every one of them. This election is the weirdest election ever. And if we take it at face value and listen to the media, I will obey, Donald Trump may end up losing. We will find out by the middle of December. But maybe the biggest loser from this election is the far left and the Democratic Party that made embracing their values as a centerpiece of their platform. We spoke, but they know better than you. The danger is there. While the Democrats hold a slight lead over the House, the Senate is still in play. As it stands right now, it's 50-48 Republicans. There are 2 seats. Everything is going to come down to the elections in Georgia. If we lose our majority in the Senate, the first 100 days scenario that I told you about a couple of weeks ago is a reality. Alaska, North Carolina appear to be going for the Republicans. I think they called them this morning, but we won't find out about Georgia until at least January. Everything is at stake here. Do you remember what I showed you that they had planned? The 60 vote majority? Gone. The filibuster, gone. Packing the courts, gone. Creating new states and abolishing the Electoral College, gone. All of their radical dreams will come true if they win those seats. If they don't, we can stop them. I cannot stress enough. Let the lawyers do the lawyering, because this is no longer a political battle. We need to have our eyes and our minds glued to Georgia. Outside of the electoral fraud investigations, which we have no control over, this is something we can do. We can volunteer, call a volunteer center, knock on doors, donate money. I'm going to say something that I thought I'd never, ever say before, but you want to play by their rules? Move to Georgia. It all comes down to Georgia, because right now the wolves are descending upon the Peach State. They're going to use every dirty trick in the book. This year, this election has already set a record for campaign spending of $14 billion. First of all, what a waste of our time and money. Second, this shows you how serious both sides are considering this election. And all of that money was blown because Democrats want to fundamentally transform our country. Well, with the stakes that high and their project hinging on the outcome of Georgia's 2 runoffs, imagine what they're about to unleash. A new wave of campaign funds began flooding into Georgia last Friday. That number is expected to balloon over $200 million. I bet it's a lot more than that. Democratic fundraiser Charles Myers told CNBC, quote, "There will be more money spent on both sides in this than any other Senate race in history." This is not hyperbole when I say the left is doing every dirty trick in the book. Georgia does not have a minimum residency to vote. Can you guess where I'm going with this one? Democrats now have been actively encouraging blue voters from all over the country to temporarily move to Georgia so they can tip the scales. Well, if you're going to play that, maybe I'll move to Georgia. Andrew Yang and his wife have already announced their plans to move to Georgia, and he actually called for volunteers to house temporary residents for the election. Democratic blue check, the blue check marks, the activists that are lighting up social media with this strategy, this is what we're up against. If the Democrats outperform us in the next few weeks leading up to this runoff, it's over. That's how serious this is. That's what we should be talking about right now. Let the lawyers do their work. And I tell you, if you get Bill Barr and those kind of people around that, I will lose my mind. Can we find anyone who actually can find corruption, find the facts, and then do something about it? We have a historic mandate to pull out all of the stops and do whatever we can in Georgia. This is how significant it will be if we hold the Senate. The last time a Democrat elected president assumed office without holding the Senate was Grover Cleveland in 1885. I don't even think Joe Biden remembers that. He was like 5 at the time. Mitch McConnell would become the most powerful person in the government, which makes me want to vomit. But at least it's a roadblock. It's not Joe Biden. Biden's presidency would be a lame duck status before it even came to power. Now, they will use every trick in the book and every executive action, but we can't pull a Fox News and roll over and say, I'm sorry, please like me. I don't want to be this person anymore. Some of us Fox News actually believe in this, and we're not giving up the fight. It's D-Day. It is time to rush the beaches. Trump's lawyers have begun filing actual lawsuits in multiple swing states. It's a great indicator of what they're really honing in on. None of the conspiracy junk or anything in social media makes really any difference whatsoever at this point. It's in the hands of the attorneys now. And if you want to help, you can help fund the attorneys. Otherwise, we have to pay attention to our job, because this is a court decision now. We have to do the rest of our political work, and that is in Georgia. Whatever can be done needs to be done. And Senator Mike Lee is with me now. Senator.
Hello. Good to be with you.
So my team is reading over the filings today and looking over this, and we're just trying to get a handle on what they're looking at. And you may not know what they're looking at this point. Things are traveling so quickly. But am I wrong to say this is now in the hands of the state and the courts?
I think that's basically right. It's going to be a combination of first recounts. In some states, you're finishing the count. And then after the count is concluded, in any state where it's close, there's likely to be a recount effort. Recounts sometimes trigger and lead to the discovery of anomalies that will result in an audit of voting equipment that might be in use, or certain statistical compilation software. Anything that creates an anomaly can trigger some sort of an audit, and then that can lead to litigation. But yeah, that's the basic point, is that the voters have voted. These votes are now, as it were, in a box, and that part is now set aside for the post-election challenges, count finalization, audits and reviews, and so forth.
This nonsense that is coming from the media, that Donald Trump is challenging this election and he has no right to do it and he should just concede, that's not what the Constitution says, is it?
No, not at all. Far from it. In fact, there is no reason why anyone should concede. In fact, quite to the contrary, Glenn, when you look at the fact that there are very few people who are in as good of a position as a presidential candidate in a close election is every 4 years. A person who has legal standing, incentive, resources, and financing all at his disposal to challenge something. If you want to take a look at election integrity and security and to make sure that things are functioning correctly, you should hope that regardless of which presidential candidate you supported, you should hope that from time to time there will be challenges, or there will be some kind of investigation or some kind of recount. It doesn't have to take a long time. It doesn't necessarily take a long time. There's nothing in my copy of the Constitution that requires a concession to be made the day after the election date in a close year. Now, yes, Hillary Clinton conceded the day after the election 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. That was a different circumstance, and there was no significant doubt as to the outcome of that election.
She conceded, but she still to this day says she was president, as does Al Gore. It seems to be a pattern with the left. I think, and
they continue to say he was illegitimate. They called him an illegitimate president, and that's so they did not only exactly what they're now accusing President Trump of doing. They did worse than that. Yeah. They continued to try to delegitimize him throughout his presidency. That's not fair,
Mike. That is, I guess, where my frustration has come from tonight. Is when is anyone going to pay for their crimes? I mean, we've had evidence after evidence after evidence, document after document after document of what happened in Ukraine. The president knew. Hillary Clinton was part of this, the scam against Donald Trump from the very beginning. Looks like Intel and maybe State Department were involved in this. It was a pretty elaborate operation. All the evidence is there to at least make a case, and then you have all of the other crimes. And I think people felt like Donald Trump was the only guy that was fighting for them. Everything else was just a part of politics. God forbid he loses. Do we just forget about all this stuff?
Well, I think that's certainly their hope, and I think that was a feature, not a bug, of the way they approached this. Look, he was uncommonly willing, has been throughout his entire presidency, to drain the swamp. And that means taking a look at the precise contours of the swamp and figuring out what makes it swampy. And that's why he scared them to death. These things, of course, take time to uncover. And they don't want to risk any possibility of not being able to control the outcome and not being able to bury these things that have been uncovered gradually over the last 4 years. It's one of the reasons why the stakes in this election are so high.
All right, I want to talk to you about how high the stakes are in Georgia and what the Democrats are apparently doing that I guess is legal. We'll talk more with Senator Mike Lee in a minute. Lee, Chuck Schumer said something the other day that was phenomenal. If we get Georgia, we change America. That's frightening to hear from a sitting senator who doesn't strike a lot of people as a Marxist radical. What did he mean by that?
Yeah, it is frightening, Glenn, and it's also truthful. He's shooting straight with us there. He's not making that up. I think what he's got in mind, I think the way I can interpret that is that a vote for Ossoff and Warnock for the U.S. Senate in Georgia is a vote for court packing. It's a vote for defunding the police. It's a vote for socialized medicine. It's probably a vote for some variation of the Green New Deal. So if you like all those things, you're going to love voting for Ossoff and Warnock.
So
if not, we got to make sure you elect Perdue and Loeffler.
If we lose this, and they know it too, I mean, the whole country is at stake. And I don't even know if this is legal. Apparently, there's no standard on how long you have to live in a state before you can declare residency. And they were already recruiting people to move in from other states who will vote blue, become a resident of the state, sign up to vote, and then move away. Is that legal, Mike?
Yes, it's legal. It's really weird, and it's really frightening that they would do that. But I'm aware of no reason why that would be unlawful. But
how are we prepared to be? Because they'll do it. How are we prepared to beat this and have a fair election?
Well, first of all, if our people show up, we win. We outnumber them, and sure, people can move into that state for the time being. There are physical limitations on how widespread that could be. If every Republican, or let me put it this way, if every non-socialist in Georgia, regardless of who moves in the next 60 days or so, if every non-socialist in Georgia shows up and votes for Loeffler and for Perdue, we avoid this. But otherwise, we got a big problem because the people of Georgia are not voting for Ossoff and Warnock, really, even though those are the names on the ballot. They're voting for Chuck Schumer as majority leader, and they're voting for what they hope will be Kamala Harris as the 51st vote for the socialist agenda. And that ought to be disturbing to all of us.
Or whoever she decides is going to be vice president.
Exactly.
I'm just saying. Mike, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for the fight. I know you take arrows from all sides, but it is good to have a scholar of the Constitution and a fighter for the Constitution in the Senate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Glenn.
You bet. Back in a minute. I think we're not that different. I think you feel much the way I do. You're frustrated. You're angry. You feel alone. I mean, as I said to Mike, if Donald Trump's not there, who is the champion? Who's the one fighting it? Because I don't see anyone else fighting it. Well, that's up to us in Georgia, but also in our own home. I want to take you back to something Ronald Reagan said on his farewell address. Listen to his words.
An informed patriotism is what we want. And are we doing a good enough job teaching our children what America is and what she represents in the long history of the world? We've got to do a better job of getting across that America is freedom. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of enterprise, and freedom is special and rare. It's fragile. If we forget what we did, we won't know who we are. I'm warning of an eradication of the American memory that could result ultimately in an erosion of the American spirit.
That is exactly what has happened to us. And I built this network for this time, and you helped me do it. Your subscription matters so much to us. I I'm telling you, there is going to come a time where we won't get a single sponsor. We won't be on Facebook or Twitter. We will be throttled at every step. It will only be your subscription that actually helps us. If you're already a subscriber, thank you. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. $30 off now. Just go to blazetv.com/Glenn. Use the promo code Glenn. Save $30. This is not what I wanted to say to you, though. We started something here. I tried to build a place that could preserve a voice of freedom. And we have been so fortunate to have some of the biggest names coming here, being on this network. There's strength in numbers and there is power in the truth. But the truth goes beyond just what we say. The truth has to be planted deep inside of your children. We announced a couple of weeks ago that Mercury One was going to be starting a new program that we have been pilot testing for the last 3 years in the summer. But it is so vital that we are opening it up for anybody that wants to watch it online. It's free. Anyone who wants to watch it online. You'll also be able to see it here on the Blaze TV as it happens. It's a 3-night course on the history of America. There are going to be several courses. You can attend it in person with your family. We've never done it with anybody other than 18 to 24-year-olds. But I wanted my family, my kids in high school. My kids, I fear, are being lost. This puts them on the right track, and boy, are they ever going to need it. You and I started something together a long time ago. It's time now to roll up our sleeves and really get serious about our own families. And this won't cost you anything. I want you to go to mercury1.org and sign up for this right now. Be a part of these classes right now. Because actually the future is very bright. Watch.
Every day your body
Selling your home. I want to thank you so much for listening and watching and paying attention to the news. You are the future of the country. You're 70 million plus strong. You're not alone. When we say we want every legal vote counted, that's what we mean. We want every legal vote, and every American should be for that idea. Any illegal votes should not be counted. We're not going to roll over. We will stand. We will stand in the blaze and the fire of the truth, because that seems to purify everything. We will stand, and we will fight you every step of the way if you try to destroy our Constitution. God bless.